Hello and welcome to a series of videos that may continue forever or may only be for a couple of videos. Found a good spot to film in the house. It's a relatively dark area. My camera has a little bit of an issue with lighting. And I have a GE Superadio here. This is one of their 90s era models, and I actually find this is my favorite of any of them. The build quality is kind of subpar in some ways, and in some other ways it's better than what you can pick up for today. So here's a quick look on the outside. You can see the band on the top, tuning dial, nice orange plastic marker, silver power button on top. There's a very large AM rod antenna with a surprisingly little amount of wire on it on the inside, but the rod itself is very long. Here's the selection switch for AM, wide, or normal. And I find that its reception on AM is very different on those two settings. And not only does it affect the sound quality, it also affects the reception. Not sure if that's normal, but it is what it is. It works. I paid nothing for this. AM and FM selection, and on and off for the automatic frequency control. And I'll demonstrate all of that. Got a treble control, bass control. Usually bass control is maxed out on this. And volume. Even though it's a rather large speaker, the very small cavity that it has to move sound within kind of limits it. But it is a very good sounding speaker. I also found that there is a real tweeter in there. I had my doubts. I've never actually seen one of these in person before, at least not up close. I know the big speaker's real. I thought the small speaker might have been a piezo or something, but no, that's a real speaker. And it does actually have a series capacitor and a coil in line, and it actually does produce sound. I had the mono FM and AM only version at one point some time ago. I made a whole video series about cleaning it, I think. And then I had another mono version with it actually had this kind of plastic design on the antenna, and it was same design, and it had push buttons on the front, and it was a mediocre performer at best, and so was the one before it. I went ahead and decided to move away from the stove there. Couldn't quite see the front. Get a better example of what the speaker looks like. Here's the telescoping rod antenna, which the last link gets stuck. But it's all there. It's not loose or anything. It's in good shape. It's powered on. Let me go ahead and flatten out the EQ. I find that this thing actually sounds really good compared to what I remembered of it about a month ago, the last time I actually tried this. And, you know, like I said, it doesn't have an extreme amount of bass, but it does sound really, really good for what it is. I'm really impressed with it. And the bass control, turning that up all the way, really doesn't add an extreme amount of bass to the signal. But the treble, for sure, does add a lot of high-frequency sound. So let me go ahead and I'll start at one end of the dial. Now I'm in a small valley.
The best possible alternative. It must not be rejected.
The Anti-Deal Coalition has countered those validators with veterans. Norm Coleman's Security Initiative joined with a group, Veterans Against the Deal.
Now I can understand why this is happening. Approximately at 96.1 on the band, there is a very, very powerful FM HD radio station, and it uses, I forget what the actual term is called, but it just absolutely splashes the signal out across the band through here on certain receivers. Certain receivers have a better rejection against that, the better selectivity. This one's not the greatest in that aspect, but it definitely picks up stations pretty well for what you're hearing, and it's really about normal what most people will consider reception in this area on this particular radio. I'm rambling a bunch, but it's the reason why you're hearing two stations at once. I have a very high-end, very high-quality Grundig field radio that does the exact same thing, except it's distorted as well. It's so hot on there, it splashes the signal so hard on other stations. Then I'll just show you. The band's a little off, I just noticed. That's not a fault of the receiver, although if it was a little bit better design, I'm sure that it might possibly have better rejection against that. But even the best receivers that I have here, and this is in the list, has that issue.
Commercial free, Wolf of Thon, just getting going.
Two, our I America initiative brings you.
That is a terrific phone number. It's toll free. Another of its terrific qualities. You get to connect with Jimmy Akin for another segment this hour on Catholic Answers Live. 888-31.
$9 activation.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. We have to go back and listen to the.
Catholic Answers. When it comes to matters of Catholic teaching, I don't know anyone else who gets to the heart of the matter.
You won't budge an inch until you hear that click. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Good performance on FM or AM for certain.
The only way they're going to disappear, I got to get 3 outs, a nice little two-seamer to somebody here in some type of sequence, get somebody hit a ball on the ground, turn a double play would help.
At the Coliseum, a 1 o'clock tip there. And then they stay in Morgantown, and here come the Kansas Jayhawks. Early this time, it's the National League West.
Performance is quite different. Not sure if that's normal.
Let them do whatever they want to. And now, same thing's going on in Buffalo. Pagula loves Rex Ryan.
This speaker in this thing moves like crazy for what it is. See if we can get a better look at this.
Ray Rice, he's out of control. You're already a big enough circle. It's Jason Smash. Nice. FM on 95.
Ignatius Press, formed as a faith formation tool for...
I'm wondering how this started. He's on.
That sounds like FM. Look at that.
People are asking this question with this guy on it.
This is
states.
AM.
How the heck does he get into the question? And you say, well, Phil, he's running for president. You know how many
Oh my God.
country? Heck, Ted Williams, whatever his name is, the
Ted Williams.
the homeless guy.
That's like 5K and down there.
You're gonna vote for him?
Maybe a little better.
You
But when I put this in wide,
that's manageable, that is what people would consider mainstream, and you ask those questions. But somebody had to have put these nuts on the ballot. And where'd these nuts come from?
oh God.
Marty, you're up next. Marty, how...
I'm so tired of hearing these nuts. Like, really. I mean, it is kind of comical that someone did that, but still, you know.
Bring a new theory to your...
And so...
You can find it in your...
The question is, I have a friend, he and his wife have decided for one reason or another to not have a
Now I can demonstrate the difference between FM, AFC, on and off. So see how easy how the station just kind of pops into the sound? Turn that off, it's a little bit harder to catch that sweet spot. Now watch this. Kind of tuned up sideways a little bit, like a little bit off. Good. Now we're taking a look at the back here for a moment, and we can tell that it definitely has external AM and FM connectors, and that's probably what sets this radio apart from a bunch. It's the fact that a lot of these high-performance radios lack one simple thing, and that's provisions for external antenna connection. And that's a lot of times where they cut the performance down. Well, I'm not saying performance, but feature set. A lot of these high-performance radios, just like this one, this also has a power cord in there and 6 D cells. It's not heavy for what it is, though. There's no real features to this besides FM, AM, FM AFC on and off, FM AM, and then wide and normal for that, and bass and treble controls. For what it is, a basic receiver, it's fairly packed with features, but there's no, it's literally just a radio, and that's what I like the most about it. Besides its giant speakers, I like the fact of how simple it is. It literally is an FM and AM radio. That's all it is. That's all it wants to be. That's all it was ever designed to be, and you know what? I think there's something special about that. If you want a simple AM and FM radio that's a good performer that actually sounds good too. It's another thing where it gets you is a lot of times good performing radios don't quite sound as good as, well, I believe that the performance in both aspects, sensitivity and sound quality, should match. So let's take a look at the inside of this real quick. It's kind of difficult to get these to come apart. You got to remove these knobs and this one back here, and they're kind of problematic with removing. So it'll be quite some time later in the day, but it'll be the same video. Thanks to the magic of video editing, copyright UXW Bill, we'll be able to take a look at the inside of this, and I'll show you the crossover for the tweeter and the back of the speakers and the circuitry. What you might see in there, it might actually surprise you. To remove the back, you need to remove the batteries. That's done simply by removing the batteries. There's a little metal clip here, and I don't know what that's actually made out of. I really don't know. It's plastic. But that's there to hold the batteries in, because there's actually a little space, a little cavity right here where the batteries don't sit. And there's 2 screws. Actually, no, there's just one. And I believe there might be an additional one. Now, it took me so hard to get that cable coiled up in there. This cable is way too long for this cavity, but I very meticulously coiled that in there. So hopefully I won't actually have to undo that. Screw here, 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 over here, here, and here. Nothing to need to be done besides removing the 3 front knobs. It was a heck of a job getting these removed before. It surprised me. Maybe it'll surprise you. I know that the lighting in here is bad, but this camera is spoiled when it comes to lighting. Here's the speakers of the radio. It's a large full range, or thereabouts, speaker in there. Definitely needed help with the high range since they decided to add a nice big beefy tweeter. And if you look down here, in series with the audio going to the tweeter, there's actually a non-polarized electrolytic capacitor and a small coil beside it. Tweeter's oddly enough rated for 20 watts at 8 ohms. The main speaker, the woofer, is rated at only 6 watts. Here's the actual, all of the circuitry of the radios on this little board. But first, the AM ferrite rod antenna is way up in there, and I don't know how much of it you can see because I'm not actually filming, or I'm not actually seeing what I'm filming here, but there's a lot of hot glue everywhere. and a very old looking resistor on the FM and AM antenna input. For tuning, oddly enough, they're using a potentiometer. And this wheel, when you tune, it turns that potentiometer. I thought that was rather strange. They're not actually using a variable capacitor, they're using a variable pot. Here you can see the 3 potentiometers, bass, treble, and volume. And as you can hear, I'm getting text messages, but that's cool. The audio amplifier IC, I think, is... Where is that little guy? I think it's that guy right there. TDA 10 something, but I'm not going to get too involved with filming this. But there you go. There's the circuitry of the radio. Here's the FM and AM front end. You know, these little trimmer capacitors right here always remind me of the Villman kits. You always get one that's always at a fixed value. It's always soldered. That's a really neat looking capacitor there. And a bunch of other electrolytics, which apparently is still good since the radio works as well as it does. Knobs feel pretty good, although the play and the shafts are kind of not good. But yeah, that's the inside of the radio. Let me take another quick view. Don't know how well you can see that down in there. There's the rod. Not a whole lot of wire on that guy, but it's a long rod.
Ain't no losers out in Vegas, ain't no Jack in Tennessee. I ain't had me one too many, and in time we'll find this was knows how every place we used to go. The wall.
Thank you for watching. Speaker might have been a piezo or something, but no, that's a real speaker. And it does actually have a series capacitor and a coil in line, and it actually does produce sound. I had the mono FM and AM only version at one point some time ago. I made a whole video series about cleaning it, I think. And then I had another mono version with it actually had this kind of plastic design on the antenna. Here's the selection switch for AM, wide, or normal. And I find that its reception on AM is very different on those two settings. And not only does it affect the sound quality, it also affects the reception. Not sure if that's normal, but it is what it is. It works. I paid nothing for this. AM and FM selection, and on and off for the automatic frequency control. And I'll demonstrate all of that. Kind of subpar in some ways. And in some other ways, it's better than what you can pick up for today. So here's a quick look on the outside. You can see the band on the top, tuning dial, nice orange plastic marker, silver power button on top. There's a very large AM rod antenna with a surprisingly little amount of wire on it on the inside, but the rod itself is very long. Got a treble control, bass control. Usually the bass control is maxed out on this. And volume. Even though it's a rather large speaker, the very small cavity that it has to move sound within kind of limits it. But it is a very good sounding speaker. I also found that there is a real tweeter in there. I had my doubts. I've never actually seen one of these in person before, at least not up close. I know the big speaker's real. I thought the small speaker. Hello and welcome to a series of videos that may continue forever or may only be for a couple of videos. Found a good spot to film in the house. It's a relatively dark area. My camera has a little bit of an issue with lighting. And I have a GE Superadio here. This is one of their 90s era models, and I actually find this is my favorite of any of them. The build quality is